listening to Where We Fit, a podcast that shines a light on the unique paths and voices in the marketing and communications industry, brought to you by the CCNY AAF student chapter. My name is Lupita Jimenez, an AdPR senior interested in writing and content development.
My name is Victor Cortez. I'm also a senior at CCNY with a focus on the art direction side of advertising. Today, we're actually joined with Prof Rivera, an ad professional turned ad professor who currently teaches at CCNY and NYCCT. She's also the founder of Save the Internships and curriculum advisor for the Growth Initiative. Hi, Professor.
Hi.
Really happy to have you here.
Glad to be here. Thanks for asking me.
So let's get started. 30 years after graduating with a bachelor's degree in literature, you found your way to CCNY to get an MPS in the BIG program. Tell us about the program and what made it stand out from other graduate school programs. Why did you think it's important to get your master's degree?
So there are a few reasons why I decided to get a master's degree, or why anyone would. Mine was very particular. As an ad professional who was turning ad professor, the reason I wanted a master's was to make sure I had a complete and up-to-date understanding of our industry in this digital shareable age, because I needed to know I was going to be able to share the knowledge, the very latest, with my students. So the BIC MPS, BIC stands for Branding and Integrated Communications program, and MPS stands for Masters in Professional Studies. To me, it was the only one that offered what I needed. It is the only one that's truly integrated, and it helped me deconstruct the industry that I had been part of for 30 years. Now, that was my reason for choosing that program. But if you're someone who just finished your undergrad studies, or you're just starting in the industry, the reason that you might want to choose the program is, as I like to say, it straps a rocket to your career. It really helps you gain a deep understanding of every discipline within the industry and how the industry itself works. You're taught by professionals who are still in the industry, and you interact constantly with professionals because it's a professional studies program. So it expands your network like nobody's business. Now, getting an MPS, if you're a recent grad or starting your career, will up your game, and it makes you much more competitive because you'll be able to sit in cross-disciplinary meetings with your colleagues, and you'll understand what matters to strategy, to account management, to creative, to media, to other teams, because you'll know how they do what they do and how what you do intersects. Side note, chances are that your employer will help pay at least part of the tuition for your BIC MPS. So if you can take the time to do it, I highly recommend it. It levels you up immediately.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting to hear about the BIG program because that's something that we've wanted to cover for so long, but we never really got the opportunity because it's such a huge, vast program with so many paths. I believe there's like 3 paths you can go through when you're entering. But even after that BIG program, you found yourself back at CCNY, but now as a professor, as your title states. And as a professor, a lot of your work is grounded in like mentoring young professionals and students. But what drew you to take that extra step of wanting to get involved with programs like Save the Internships, the Growth Initiative, the 3% Conference, and even like the Andy Awards, and being involved in all those things?
Okay, so yes, I did end up at CCNY after I finished the BIC program, and I immediately started mentoring my students, and I was really happy to be asked to start teaching copywriting and eventually marketing research and media studies. And I have been mentoring most of my career. And the reason that I started mentoring was because I have been mentored myself. And I found out directly the importance of being mentored. So I was not an advertising major. I was not a marketing major. I was not a communications major. I was a comparative literature major who had no idea what advertising was about. But I knew that I was a nonfiction writer And so I tried all kinds of other careers until I decided I wanted to try advertising. So you can imagine when I put together my first portfolio as a literature major, what that looked like. It was not good, but I didn't know. So I took that portfolio to New York. I was living in LA at the time, and an ECD, a top ECD, executive creative director at a big firm, was nice enough to see me. And when I showed him that portfolio, he asked me who else I had shown it to. And I said, nobody, you're the first person. And he said, keep it that way. This is not a portfolio. This is a collection of I don't know what. I can see that you know how to write, but this is going to do you more harm than good. So I recommend you cancel all your appointments, enjoy New York, but this is not what you want to show anyone. So that act of kindness of telling me, and he did it in the nicest way possible, really showed me the importance of mentoring. And then he went on to tell me that I could take a 12-week portfolio course, and then I should go work in an ad agency in any capacity I could. And I went to work as the secretary to the executive creative director at Gray in Los Angeles. And all of the creatives helped me to put together my portfolio, and they mentored me. So that taught me from the start that it was really important to mentor others and to pay it forward. And I've been doing it throughout my career. And I started doing it more formally when I was the CCO of the 3% conference. And we had all these great speakers who all of the attendees wanted to speak with, but didn't have the time. So I created something called Speed Mentoring, which was actually a live event that we held. And it allowed people to meet these top people in the industry in like 8 minutes or less. That was a total hit at the 3% conference, and I went on to do it at South by Southwest. I did it in San Francisco and LA and New York and London. When I found myself as a professor mentoring my students, I knew that I had to help them try to find other ways to be mentored, because I've seen that it has such a direct impact on their likelihood to succeed. As I think I've mentioned to Victor in the past, I'm only the second person in my family to graduate from college, and having others help me made a difference. And everyone who graduates from college makes a difference, not just for themselves, but their entire family. So if mentoring can help, all the more power to it. But I want to also answer your question about save the internships. So interning is so critical now because internships are the entry-level jobs. There are very few entry-level jobs anymore. And to try to get an entry-level job without an internship is very, very difficult. So I tell all my students they need internships. Now, last spring, as we know, because of COVID-19, all of the agencies started shutting down, trying to figure out, what's essential, what do we not absolutely have to do. And many agencies and brands immediately shut down the internship programs that they had planned. And I thought that that was a complete mistake, because it's so important to keep these internship programs going, and they can be done easily virtually, and young people desperately need these. So it would basically be close the door on the beginning of their careers. So luckily I was already in talks with many agencies about internship programs, and I was trying to place my students from CCNY and City Tech there. And one of them that I was speaking with was Pereira Odell, which is an independently owned, bi-coastal, super creative, very well-respected ad agency. When they were going to close the doors on their internship, I told them they absolutely shouldn't do it. It was the wrong thing to do. And that in fact, they should double down and hire an intern or two in a public way and call out other agencies to tell them to do the same thing. I managed to convince them. I think my copywriting background helped, because I was able to tell a story that they found compelling, and they agreed. So within just a few weeks, we managed to put up a website to find many very qualified candidates and to get them into ad agencies and brands. In fact, in the space of that few weeks when I threw together the website and found the candidates and so on, when it was all said and done, by the end of last summer, 24 students and recent grads had found internships and jobs through activating my own advertising network and spreading the word far and wide. Now, those internships have proved invaluable to those students. Many of them have gone on to other internships. Some of them have been hired in full-time jobs. So internships are critical, and internships for the kinds of students who I teach is even more critical because, as we all know, the ad industry is having a real problem with making sure that its talent is diverse, equitable, and inclusive. And the kinds of students that I teach are the very ones that they need absolutely the most. Now, Save the Internships didn't happen or be successful just because of me or just because of a little bit of word of mouth. It also was successful because of organizations like the Growth Initiative, which is a virtual agency internship, if you will, or fellowship that happens every summer, and thanks to the Ad Club of New York. Save the Internships, the Growth Initiative, and Ad Club of New York formed a trio. We call it the tricycle, and we all work together for the same goal to help students and recent grads find great opportunities. And by being part of the Growth Initiative or part of the Ad Club summer program or working with Save the Internships, many students were able to take advantage of those opportunities. Save the Internships provided the talent, if you will. The Growth Initiative provided the training in their virtual agency program. And the Ad Club added additional learning and contacts. So this summer, it's only natural that I'm now the curriculum advisor of the Growth Initiative. And I'm happy to say, I believe a few of my students have made it in. It hasn't been announced officially yet, but a few have made it in. And this year, Growth is a 10-week program. And the extra 2 weeks at the end is actually what we're calling a prep school, where students will have the opportunity to work with recruiters to get professional development training, to really hone their resume, their LinkedIn, their portfolio, to practice interviewing. And these recruiters will actually even help place these students. So these kinds of programs are important because, again, entry-level jobs are really almost impossible to get without them. And I'm glad to be part of them. And I'll keep you posted on the progress.
So since you spoke a little bit about mentorship and a lot of your students getting accepted into a couple of internships, I want to know, since, sometimes oftentimes students don't realize how many resources are available to them, like the growth opportunity internship. I would want to know, what advice would you give to students who lack the courage to take advantage of opportunities that are commonly overlooked?
Great, that's a really good question. So students often don't realize all the resources at their disposal, and they might be a little afraid of asking professors for help and so on. But I will bet, like myself, many of your professors probably offer assistance, right? They probably, like me, I'm constantly going on about, there's this internship or that internship. You should attend this particular online webinar and so on. Let me know if you need help with your resume. And what I find is students don't think that their professors really want to help. Most professors are actually a super valuable resource. And when we offer help, I encourage you to take us up on it. So I'll give you an example of a class of something like 25 students. I won't name the class. I have offered all semester all kinds of assistance. Out of 25 students, only 2 of them have raised their hand to ask me to help them. guess what? Those 2 students have internships this summer through contacts that I help them to create, and I help them with their resumes and so on. Your professors are dying to help you. Our work does not stop at the classroom door. We really have great networks to offer you. We have good expertise. So what I would say is try to get over that fear of asking for help. We love it when you ask for help, and we are here for you. So I will tell you, raise your hand and ask your professors to help you craft your resume, to hone your LinkedIn, to really look at your portfolio, to help you explore what roles you might want within the industry. Ask them to suggest what kinds of internships you should be looking for. And when you do that, be ready to help us help you. Be as organized as you can. We can help you get informational interviews, find job opportunities, and so on, but do some of your own research, right? Because you don't just want someone to tell you what to do. You have your own ideas. Do some of your own research. Have follow through on things, because professors will probably say, okay, I'm going to help you with this, but I'm going to give you a little homework. So have follow through. And when we recommend that you attend online events, conferences, and so on, take our word for it. Go ahead and do that. Let us know you're keeping up on the industry. By doing those things, you're showing us that you're worth our extra time and effort. And if you show us that you've got a lot of hustle and just a little talent, chances are we're going to do everything that we can to help you. So, my advice is just ask. 99% of the time, we're going to say yes.
Yeah, I actually want to circle back to those points you made about like mentorship. And it's something like when I had class with Professor Garcia, Javier Garcia, who's our executive producer for the podcast, and he always mentioned that you should always ask, because everyone is like willing to help or happy to help, especially if for CCNY students that you're teaching, but not just professors. How do you feel about like mentorship, where like you need to take that extra step of finding someone outside of school who will guide you, like, and how do you find like the right mentors and make those connections?
That's a great question. So and these days it's so much easier, going to an online event, right? Something that seems like it's related to the industry or something that you're interested in is a great way to meet people. When you hear a speaker who inspires you or says something that you find interesting when you've been on a webinar, and that it's the easiest thing in the world to then jump on LinkedIn and shoot them a message and say, you said the most brilliant thing and it really made me think. Start to build relationships with people in those kinds of ways. On LinkedIn, you probably already have contacts and you probably already have people you follow. Look at their network, see who bubbles up within their network, and reach out. Let them know you think that the work that they're doing is interesting, or just ask them if they would have time to do a quick informational interview with you. So finding a mentor, one of the mistakes that people often make who haven't found mentors before is they'll see someone on LinkedIn, they person posted an interesting article, or they say something brilliant, at some event online or in person, and they'll ask them at first meeting, would you be my mentor? So I like to say this is asking someone, will you marry me, before you've dated? No. You don't want to do that. You need to build a relationship. Or it's like asking someone you just met, will you help me move? It's a heavy lift. So my suggestion is you start to build a relationship. You ask them questions and you figure out also, what are they expert in? I don't believe that you should have just one mentor. I advise students and professionals to have what I call a personal board of directors, a PBOD. So some people might be really good at salary negotiation. Some people might be really good at helping you expand your network. Some people might be really good at, once you're in a job, helping you figure out how to ask for a promotion. Some people might be really good at helping you deal with a horrible boss. Some people might be really good at helping you navigate an agency when there's no one there who looks like you. So my suggestion is just talk to a lot of people, have conversations, build a relationship, find out the areas where it seems like they have their strengths. And over time, you will build a mentorship relationship. You don't have to be so formal as to say, will you be my mentor? And have several. And when you start this relationship, as I said, don't ask for the moon. Ask for something simple. And something else that students forget, mentorship is a two-way street. People who have been in the business for a long time, I can't tell you how many times. So I mentioned speed mentoring. I would set up those events, and it would mostly be younger people who wanted to get advice from people who had been in the industry for a long time. I can't tell you how rewarding the mentors found that to be and how much they learned from the people they were mentoring. Young people have new ideas and different ways of doing things. And people who've been in the industry for a long time, if they are good at what they do, are always looking for new ways to do things. And so you're actually, young people are actually a real fountain of information for us too. It can work both ways. Listen, you don't think that I learned how to use Instagram on my own. My students helped me, right? And I still, screw up stories, but it's a two-way street, and realize that you are bringing something to the equation as well.
So during the briefing, we spoke a lot about diversity. You mentioned the importance of company employees reflecting its audiences. How valuable is the incorporation of diversity, inclusivity, and equity in a corporate structure?
So it's very important. And, this is a drum that we've been banging for a long, long time. Yeah, I know from firsthand experience that the industry is not reflecting the people who are being marketed to. When I started out, I was the only Puerto Rican woman at my first agency. I was working in Los Angeles on Honda, and it was a great agency. I loved working there, but there were very few women, and I was the only Puerto Rican woman. And I know for a fact that Honda sells to a large Hispanic population, but it was just me, and I was a junior copywriter, mid-level copywriter. So I wasn't in a position to be making decisions. From a business standpoint, that doesn't make any sense. Now, I've worked in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in Boston, and New York, at big agencies, at small agencies, on the brand side, for my own business. And I can tell you for a fact that most ad agencies and brands are still full of white men who all went to the same colleges and they lived the same privileged lives. Now, this country is getting browner by the minute, which I think is great, not to mention more inclusive. So how on earth can you create advertising, much less products and services, for Black, Latino, or LGBTQ families if none of those people are in the room when the decisions are being made about what the marketing is? So this is why it continues to be a hot topic in the industry, because diversity, equity, and inclusion are the right thing to do morally, right? We need representation, but they're also good business. Study after study has proven that diversity equals innovation, and innovation equals profitability. So That is why diversity, equity, and inclusion are important in the business world, not to mention just the right thing to do based on the way the world is today, right? The people who are living in it and the people who are being marketed to, and the fact that we all deserve to be recognized and have the voice that we deserve.
Yeah, I agree completely. And you like this is something that's repeated across your career, like in all the programs you're a part of, that's what you're passionate about, and it's all really about helping others. And I remember in the beginning of this recording, you were speaking a lot about diversity, for example, at a place like CCNY where you teach and your students are the ones who kind of want to take that path. So my question actually is, so how do you see CCNY students, like as diverse as they are, fitting into the marketing and communications industry, and how can they create more spaces where their voices can be heard?
Right. Yeah, that's a core question, and that's the whole purpose of this podcast, right?
Yeah.
What school is more diverse than City College? I mean, it is the school that is known to have such incredible diversity. And City College students are just what the advertising, PR, and communications industry need. These agencies are like, we need diverse. And I always say diversity is many things. Diversity is not just the color of your skin. Diversity is the way that you think. Diversity is your gender. Diversity is your sexual orientation. Diversity is, your neuroscience and abilities and all of that kind of thing. But I always want employers to realize that my students, who they are clamoring for, they shouldn't just hire them because they are diverse. They should hire them because they're also incredibly talented. My ad PR students are very well trained, extremely well trained. I was a literature major. I was not well trained, but my students know ad planning. They understand media. They understand market research. They know how to do copywriting. They know what's important about strategy. My students are very qualified. They have plenty of skills and, related coursework before they even walk into a job. And that's very attractive. My students also have a secret superpower. City College students are not privileged students. These are students who are managing a full course load and usually working at least part-time, if not full-time. So they already know, they've met challenges. They have struggled, right? And their jobs are not like just to buy new sneakers. My students' jobs are helping to put a roof over their families' heads. They're helping to pay the bills. So what I like to tell employers is my students' secret superpower is they've got hustle like nobody's business. My CCNY students are just the voices that the industry needs to change the industry from the inside out. They have the skill, they have the talent, and they have the hustle that students who come from more privileged schools are just lacking. So to me, they're the ideal candidates. And it's no surprise to me that whenever I sent students on an interview from Save the Internships, 99.9% of the time, they landed the job.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly the perfect way to close out this episode, really. And I just want to thank you for your time, Professor. And I want to quickly sum up all the key points that you've made across all these questions, starting from like your own journey where you kind of just learned like the need to help and that desire to help that grew on you and followed you all the way through to where you are now as you're involved in Save the Internships, Growth Initiative, as a professor, the 3% conference, and just always wanting to help and be a resource ultimately as a professor, because that's something that's really overlooked by students. Going on to the mentorship aspect, you mentioned the importance of it being a two-way street. And also through these programs, uh, you mentioned the importance of diversity equal being equal to innovation, and that innovation leads to profitability. And it's something that has began being incorporated into a lot of corporate environments, but there's still a long way to go. And to see like programs that you're involved in be really driving this idea is just really amazing to hear.
Great, thank you. I really enjoyed the talk, and I hope that it's informative.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. But thank you for listening, everyone. This has been Where We Fit, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Thank you guys for tuning in with Where We Fit, a podcast celebrating the unique paths and voices of the marketing and communications industry. Brought to you by the CCNY AAF Student Chapter. Make sure to follow us on our Instagram accounts for all the latest updates at Where We Fit Pod and at AAF City College. We'll see you in the next episode.